First and foremost, we want to remind the media and everybody that's watching at home that we do understand that there are rumors that are floating around. I've been asked numerous questions to confirm information that is not true. The information that we do know and the information that we can provide facts for and provide proof that has actually happened as part of this case, we do have been providing, and we will continue to provide as needed. The facts of the investigation will be reported today, as well as all the facts that were reported earlier today are all facts and information that we can confirm and that we have proof on what actually occurred. This has been a long investigation for our detectives. Started at about 6:30 last night, and some of the detectives didn't leave until about 6:30 this morning, and some of the detectives that were working on the case last night are still working on the case as we speak right now. So this has been an ongoing investigation. It's been a long investigation, a very long day for a lot of people within the department, but they're doing what they have to do in order to find out what occurred, what went on, and the facts of what this investigation has. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the suspect that we identified as the offender for this. His name is George Daniel Wechsler. His last name spelling is Wechselr. His birth date was October of 1971. He is Albuquerque native, and he is 45 years old. During the course of our investigation, we did determine that the female victim that did sustain a gunshot wound was dating this male for a short amount of time. The amount of time that happened, we're unsure of at this point in time. They did break up. It was the decision of the female to break up with this male, and the male was asked repeatedly not to have contact with her or her family. We found out a few days ago that this male, the offender, did ask the female victim if he could come over to the house to bring the children Christmas presents, and she denied. She said that she did not want him at the house, she did not want contact with them, and we want to iterate very clearly that she has asked this male several times not to contact her, not to come to her house. As was stated earlier this morning, he went over to the house anyway. He did break into the residence, and the facts of what happened after that were released in the press conference this morning. He does have a criminal history. 2004, he was arrested for reckless driving. 2002, he was arrested for assault against a household member, which involved a harassment and a stalking charge. And he pled guilty, no contest, to misdemeanor stalking and petty misdemeanor assault with this case. He does not have any felony history that we were able to find as of yet. Again, our detectives are still working on finding out more about the offender, more about who he is, and trying to find out more about what happened that night. Other contacts with the Albuquerque Police Department do include that he was issued a summons for a physical fight with his brother, and that was in August of 2015. And in November of this year, he was transported to the hospital after making suicidal statements to both officers that respond to the call and also a friend that called police. He was transported to the hospital for an evaluation. The results of that evaluation are unknown, and due to being medical, we wouldn't be able to release that even if we did know the results of that investigation. The Jeep that was asked about earlier by one of the stations, that Jeep was a vehicle that he was driving. However, it was not a vehicle that belonged to him. He had borrowed that vehicle, and that was why the vehicle was parked in front of the residence. It is being processed for warrants. It is being processed for evidence, so that is part of our investigation as well. Conducting a firearms investigation as well is also going on with this case. We want to make sure that we do a full investigation as we do with every investigation that we do, and we want to find out as many facts and as much information as we possibly can so that we can reconstruct everything that happened with this case. Again, this is an ongoing investigation. We want the public and the media to realize that. What that means is that we're constantly trying to find out more information. We're constantly trying to prove more facts. The more facts that we can prove and provide, the more facts that you can report on. And that's what we're asking for the media to do, is report on facts that we can provide to you. Anything that comes from the police department from this case is going to be stuff that we can prove. And that's what we want to make sure that is important to everybody. Again, we have a responsibility not only as a police department, as a community, but also as anybody that is following this case, is that we want to make sure that we don't re-victimize the victims. There were 3 small children that were victims of this, a mother of those 3 small children, and we understand that there has been a lot of stuff going on today on social media and a bunch of other people trying to interview both the family and even the father of these children, and they've asked us repeatedly to have that to stop. We want to respect that. We want to try and give them the space they need in order to get through the situation. It's a tough situation that I cannot imagine having to go through as a parent, and we want to make sure that they have the room that they need in order to continue on with what they need to do and to move forward from this day. This is something that we understand is going to have a lot of questions later on. And hopefully later on we can conduct an interview with the female and find out what may have happened that we don't know as of yet. At this point in time, this is all the information that we have that we can confirm facts on. Again, our investigators are constantly trying to find out more facts. They're constantly trying to do more investigations that are going to lead up to what occurred last night. And as soon as we can confirm information that is valid, we will provide that to you.
Do you know how long they might have been dating for?
We don't know.
What kind of gun did you have?
We don't know. The investigators have anything that's evidence being processed at the scene. I have not been provided that information, but once that information is available for release, it'll be released.
Had he at one point lived with the family, or he was always in his own residence?
We don't know. A lot of that information we're not going to be able to find out until we can interview the female victim. And unfortunately, she is at the hospital still being treated. She is still in critical condition, so she's unable to do an interview. So that she is going to have a lot of key points that we need in order to figure out further what happened with the investigation.
How did they meet?
We don't know.
No idea how long ago, and you mentioned they broke up?
We don't know that specific either. Again, she's going to have a lot of the vital information that we need for these kind of questions to be answered. And until we can talk to her, we're going to be able to find this out. If something happens for the worst that we can't talk to her, we may never know these questions.
Is she awake right now?
I don't know what her current status is at the hospital. I know she's being treated and she is critical.
Are you guys hoping to interview her later today, tomorrow?
Her medical need is more important than anything else right now. We want to make sure that she is taken care of by the doctors. We want to make sure that she recovers. We don't want to put any additional stress on her. So us forcing an interview, forcing anything with talking to her about what happened that night may hinder her recovery. So we don't want to disturb that until the doctors feel that we can go and talk to her.
Where was she shot on her body?
I don't know.
None of the prior cases involved this family or this woman, right?
No, actually the victim that was in the stalking and assault case was another female that wasn't part of the situation last night at all.
And that was in 2002.
Yes.
Do you know if
Another
they were in a relationship, him and that woman back in 2002?
Who?
The suspect and the woman in 2002?
The other female?
Were they in a relationship?
Yes, because it was on a household member. Have to have some sort of relationship for being a household member charge.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
What's his name again?
His name is George, middle name Daniel, and his last name is Wechsler. Chsler. If we have no further questions, I'll conclude the press conference. Thank you for coming.